Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Jane, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, what an amazing party this has been. To bring in, for me, this is the beginning of the holiday season. I'm so happy to be here, and as we gather during this season, I think about all the Christmas lights that we see when we're driving down the roads. I don't know. For me, lights have a special kind of symbolism. I'm always reminded about how powerful it is to find even that little glimpse of light in our really darkest times, And I don't know about you, but I'm so grateful. One of the greatest gifts I've ever received is this gift of sobriety. And it happened to me without me even looking for it, to tell you the truth. So my story is really about that. It's about how this tiny spark of willingness allows me to live in the light that I'm living in today, and all of you are living in. I'm looking out at a room full of people who have that light, and how fortunate we are. So once again, I want to thank you for inviting me. I want to thank Trisha for, I don't know where she went, but where are you, Trisha? There you are. For always keeping in touch with me, this, very caring connection that we've established just over the telephone. So it was really nice to finally meet you tonight. And okay, I'm going to go on record by saying that this is the best potluck that I have ever been to. I want to also thank all my beloved and dear friends that are here. And I want to thank my amazing husband for driving 5 hours to get here today. James, you want to stand up and say hi to everyone? And I also want to thank our ASL interpreter. I am so thrilled to see you here tonight. And I have a special place in my heart for accessibility. As a matter of fact, my husband is the chair for accessibility services in our district. And my stepson, my husband's son, is profoundly deaf. So I love seeing the inclusiveness of this event. So thank you for being so thoughtful to think about that. All right. So I don't know about you, but, first of all, my sobriety date is September 24th of 1996. Woo! Truly a miracle. And I am from Tallahassee, Florida, in case I didn't make that, if I didn't state that, I know I didn't, but we came from Tallahassee, and my home group is Central Group in Tallahassee, Florida. And what else do I have? Who else do I have to thank? Anyway, all of you for being here. Let me tell you something. When I look out at a group of people like you all, one of the miracles that I think about is that probably all of us should be dead. I mean, that's not a stretch when I say that. And so I'm actually getting choked up right now by looking at all of you here. Like I said, there's a special light in all of us. And I see it and I feel it, and it's especially apparent during this holiday season. So thank you all for coming out tonight. And I don't know about you, but the holidays for me used to be chaos. And today rather it means more of the words that come to mind other than chaos are connection, gratitude, showing up, and I'm grateful for the chance to share bits of my story, which basically I stick to the script. I'm going to talk about what it was like, what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like tonight. Or what I'm like today, I should say. So again, all of you, I couldn't be happier to be here, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, you probably can imagine that my accent is not a Floridian. I am from the great state of New Jersey. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was joking with my husband. We heard Bruce Springsteen's Santa Claus is Coming to Town on the radio today for the first time. I was like, it's official. The holiday season's here. I grew up in a big Irish Catholic family. My parents had 7 kids. Actually, I am so blessed. My mom is 90, my dad is 94. They still live in the house that we grew up in, and I'm heading home next week for the holidays. So I'm so blessed in so many ways. And anyway, we're that family growing up that used to take up an entire pew at church every Sunday. And I'll tell you, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I always like to share a little bit about my dad because I'm so proud of him. But in track and field, my dad was favored to be the first person ever to break the 4-minute mile. And he just missed it. He ran a 4.00.02. Can you imagine? The New York Times does a column every year about the 10 most famous moments in Madison Square Garden. And my dad is in one of them. So anyway, it was a famous mile run, and Madison Square Garden was filled, and the word was out that the world record was going to get broken that night, and it was my dad and 2 other contenders. So let me tell you what happened. The bell rang. Oh, and by the way, we have a picture of him at the starting line, and you can see like Joe DiMaggio in the background, Rocky Graziano, like all these big athletes from back in the day were there. Bell rings, final straightaway. My dad's in second place, and he goes to overtake the guy who's in first. And the guy elbows my dad off the track, which is an automatic disqualification. My dad gets back on the track, catches up, gets the guy from the back of the shorts, spins him around, and they start to have a fight. And the guy in third went through and broke the world record. So I share that story because it's like it says everything about my father's Irish feist, the grandson of immigrants, his work ethics, his focus, his sense of discipline, and he instilled that into all of us kids. All right. So anyway, moving forward, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into my first drink. Okay, I was 14 years old, and I love the symbolism of my first drink story because my 18-year-old cousin and a bunch of her friends went to the movies, and they bought in 2 bottles of rum, and so we got the big Cokes, movies theater-sized Cokes, and they started dumping the rum into my Cokes, and I just remember that feeling like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And the symbolism that I was alluding to was the movie was the original Star Wars. So can you imagine, when I tell you that was cutting edge stuff for back in the day, and I was just sitting in my seat like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And I was flying around intergalactically with Han Solo in that Millennium Falcon, and man, it took me out of this world and put me into that entirely new galaxy, and I loved floating around there. And I'll tell you something, that's the deep imprint that my first drink left in my mind, and in my brain, I should say, and I went for that every single time I drank. It was like plain Jane was gone. Enter extraordinary Jane, enter obnoxious Jane, enter... Okay, Jane's here, the party's about to get started, and that's what I went for every single time. Although I really I got so sick that I just didn't want to drink after that, that first episode. And so I'll just tell you something. High school was a really great time for me. I went to an all-girl Catholic high school. There were 81 girls in my class, and I graduated in 1981. And I always like to share it because, hey, not many people can say this, but Whitney Houston was one of my best friends in high school. And I like to mention that, not to name drop, but also to honor her, because, man, do I wish she found what we have all found. Maybe she'd be sitting here tonight, too, And I'm so glad that I got to know the true, authentic Whitney before the industry took her over, But anyway, it was like, I was on the track, of course, on the track team, student council, you name it. I was the all-American kid when I was in high school. And I had grand aspirations of going to college and, I don't know, doing something where I'd make a lot of money. Maybe a doctor, an attorney, something like that. And I graduated second in my class in high school. And college was amazing. Okay, so here's where my real drinking began. I went away. It was almost like the sheltered Catholic schoolgirl getting set loose in the biggest, baddest city on earth. I went to Manhattan College in New York City, and this was in the 1980s, folks, where I always like to sing that little line from the Eagles. It was everything, all the time, life in the fast lane. And let me tell you something, all of my dreams and aspirations went into the back seat of that car. And I was going 185 miles an hour. I mean, the kids today call it FOMO, but I had a fear of missing out. I mean, this is the time where New York City was the clubs. We're talking Studio 54, the Limelight, the Kamikaze Club. One of my claims to fame is I saw the Talking Heads and the Ramones at CBGB's. You know what I mean? I mean, it was the heyday of New York City. And you know what goes along with that. I know we're not supposed to have an opinion on outside issues, but I have one. Anyone else have a thing with outside issues? All right. Now, I'm a big believer in singleness of purpose, but let me tell you something. I love to smoke weed. I love to snort cocaine. But far and away, alcohol was the drug of my drug of choice. But let me tell you something. I did a lot of those other two things, you know? So anyway, actually, I'd love to see ASL doing this. I snorted cocaine, I smoked weed, and I drank. Right? Yeah! Did a lot of that. So anyway, I'll tell you something. I don't know. This is the point in my life, though, where I can honestly say I was definitely more addicted to that lifestyle. I mean, if I had to put who I was back in that time into one line, it would be I was a risk-taking, rule-breaking, hell-raising, rock and roll, fashionista out there trying to live a rock and roll lifestyle. And I did, man. Let me tell you, you name the band, I saw them in Madison Square Garden. I actually partied with a bunch of them. You know what I mean? Like, I was out there. And needless to say, I jammed in college at midterms and finals and got by. But by sophomore year, I went from pre-med to creative writing. So anyway, and to make this part, a long story short, by junior year, I knew I needed to get out of New York City. And my family started to alienate me, or, I started to become alienated from my family, I should say. And my mother especially, my mom and I have always, butted heads, but she always made me feel like a Jezebel, like the black sheep of the family. Like, she always favored my brothers. She's from that old school. I guess it's like an Irish cultural thing, like the boys, And if I stayed out late, I was, a bad girl or whatever. And so let me tell you, every time she made me feel like that, I did something kind of along the lines of like, oh, you think I'm that bad? Watch this. And I would go out and do something really self-harmful in nature, and I don't know, that just became part of my cycle. And so junior year of college, I had the opportunity to study abroad. And I went and I moved to a little city. And by the way, this was the first of many geographic changes. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm getting out of New York City. I'm going somewhere new. Nobody knows me. Clean slate, start fresh. And I moved to a little town in France called Nantes. And I moved in with a French family. But guess what? They had a 19-year-old nanny living with them. And we tore up that little city of Nantes just like I was tearing up New York City. I mean, it was the first time where I saw that everywhere I went, I brought all my stuff with me, and it was just repeat, But anyway, I had a great time living over there. Thank God it was pass-fail. Anyway, I also, that sense of adventure was always with me. And I was able to backpack through Europe that summer on $300 I had for 2 months. Are you ready for this? I had the train ticket. The first $150 I spent in London getting my hair done. Now remember, this was 1984. We're talking the height of punk rock, so you can imagine what it looked like. And the other 150, I went to Amsterdam to, load up for my magical mystery tour. You know what I'm saying? And that was funny, wasn't it? Oh, okay, maybe not. Don't you love when you make a joke and look out at the audience and they're like... So we actually came back to New York and it started all over again. I thought, clean slate, fresh start, senior year of college, get it together, forget it. It just, we know what happened. It begins this downward path this road that we hop on to self-destruction, okay? So, I just want to stop for a minute because I'm really hot. Okay, so anyway, I graduated from college and I got my first job. And I moved to a city called Hoboken, New Jersey. Now, just to let you know about this part of New Jersey, Hoboken is in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most amount of bars in 1 square mile. So I got a job, of course, at an Irish pub, and my first job was teaching high school. I taught high school English and French, and let me tell you something. When I was in my high school, when I was teaching high school is when I really started to cross all those lines that I said I would never cross. I started having an affair with a married teacher that I worked with. I used to have to get a drink, many times at lunchtime. We would go out to the local, dive and get wasted and come back and teach high school. You all remember overhead projectors with the glass tops? Well, you know what I was doing off of them. And so I just want to share this little aside, okay? I actually got like a Facebook instant message a couple of months ago, and it was from someone, and they said, you might think this is really weird, but I just listened to a speaker on an AA speaker thing, and I think you were my high school teacher. And sure enough, it was one of my high school students, and today I am her sponsor. So how cool is that? I have so many full circle stories. Oh my gosh. So anyway, those high school teaching jobs didn't last long, and I had another chance to start big time over fresh, because let me tell you something. I don't know how I did what I did back then. I mean, because it was almost like I was running on empty, but because of that crazy work ethic that my dad put in me, even if I was up all night, I would show up for work in whatever condition I was in the next morning, So I had another chance. A teacher that I worked with just got back from Japan, from teaching English in Japan. And he said, Jane, you got to do it. You're going to die if you stay around here. And I just see, you're just, you have to get out of here. So I did. I went on an interview and I got the job. And 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Japan. And that's how I rolled. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, you know what, Mom and Dad, I'm going to Japan. See ya. And maybe if I move far, far away, they'll miss me. And meanwhile, they were like, thank God she's gone, But I remember sitting on the plane, getting wasted. I remember the guy sitting next to me was like, I can't believe you're moving to Japan. Do you speak any Japanese? And I was like, yeah, I know how to say domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. But that's about it. And I moved to Japan, and I went initially for a year, but I ended up staying for 3 years because it was so easy to live as a functioning alcoholic over there. I hooked up with a bunch of crazy Australians and Brits and New Zealanders and Canadians. And let me tell you, we would have gotten arrested weekly if we had pulled the shenanigans here that we were doing over there. But the Japanese people are so polite. They would just kind of, put their head down and they'd shake their heads and they'd go, oh, henagaijin, which translates into crazy aliens, And so, and I worked for Time Life Educational Services teaching English to basically Toyota for 3 years. So I was teaching the Japanese businessmen who were being transferred overseas to the States or to Canada for a month-long immersive English course. And I had to stay in the training center and live with them for a month, eat breakfast, lunch, dinner with them, and every night we drank ourselves silly. I mean, that's when the real cultural exchanges would go down, and you know what else? That's when I crossed that line. That's when first thing in the morning, I needed to have a drink, And by the way, Toyota has a plant in Kentucky, so I used to have a bottle of Maker's Mark on my nightstand. And, I'd have to take a big old swig of that before I even got out of bed in the morning. At lunch, I couldn't wait to get back to my room to take another swig or 2 or 3. And then at night, it was on. And like I said, I did that for 3 years. Okay, now I'm almost like 30, so it's time to move back to the States and get my life together. I moved back to New Jersey, and I lasted there for less than a month before my mother disowned me. I got my first DUI, and let me tell you something, that was a miracle that was my first DUI, because every time I drove, I was drunk for many, many years. As a matter of fact, 14, all right? 14 years of that crazy drinking run lasted. And anyway, I wanted to tell you too, so I started drinking when I was 19, and what I'm about to tell you, I was 32-ish when I got back. So, let me share what happened. Because I got my DUI, I had a friend who lived in Florida, and that's how I ended up here. And the friend had a restaurant and said, you can move down here, you can ride your bike everywhere, I'll give you a job being a waitress or a hostess or whatever. So come on down. And I kid you not, I moved, I thought to myself, fresh slate, clean start, nobody knows me. And I moved to the Florida Keys. All right, once again, I wonder why everyone's not laughing, because that was the biggest failed experiment that anyone could ever have thought of, I moved down there, and let me tell you, folks, I hit the skids. That was where that incomprehensible demoralization occurred for me. The waitressing jobs didn't last long. And I moved down there in season, so I got kicked out of where I was living, and I became homeless. And let me tell you something. I remember walking around barefoot, like I said, homeless, with a bottle of Papua vodka in my hands at all times. I had lost the desire to live. I like to call it my fade to black months. And I just, I didn't have the courage to take my own life, but I thought, I'll do like a Nicolas Cage, leaving Las Vegas and just drink myself to death. Or let me tell you, forget about snorting cocaine. I was smoking crack. I thought I'd blow my heart up. And just to give you an idea about how much I smoked, I actually got a lawsuit. Right when I got that DUI, I was in the car with a guy, and he got into an accident, and we switched seats because he didn't have his license at the time. But I won all the money from the lawsuit. So I got $15,000 during that time where I was homeless. Did I get a place to live? No. What I did was I just, again, was on that road to self-destruction, and all that money was gone in less than 2 months. $15,000. So anyway, I had the proverbial, I looked in the mirror and I saw like this skeleton Let me tell you, if I was 85 pounds, that was a lot. And I just was like, oh my God, I am looking at like a dead woman. I was literally unrecognizable. And so I had the wherewithal, that little bit of light that I talked about at the beginning, that little tiny spark of light came into my head, and I said, let me call my cousin up in Fort Lauderdale. And she came and picked me up, and I tried to get my life together, but it really didn't happen. I got a temp job in Fort Lauderdale, and I met a guy who was actually, the temp job was Delta Dream Vacations. So I was putting together vacation packages for like ex-adventure tours that were happening in Europe. And the guy who was starting this package lived in Austria at the time. So he would come into town once a month, and let me tell you, we partied. As a matter of fact, our first date, we went skydiving. And let me put it to you this way, I wasn't straight when I jumped out of that plane. You know, that was part of my history too. I got my jollies out of these really high-risk taking behaviors. And so anyway, we had been in probably about 6-month relationship, and the next thing you know, he was like, hey, I really would like to go down to the Florida Keys to check out the water sports. You want to do it? And I was like, oh God, I really hit the skids, man, when I was down there. But okay, let's go. And off we went. And we got to Isla Morada, the first key, and all the we went into a tiki bar, of course, got wasted. And we did that all the way down the Keys. And we made it as far as Marathon Key. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Marathon Key, but they actually had just filmed that movie, True Lies, down there with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so, unbeknownst to me, we went and we watched the sunset and then continued to drink all night long. And it was probably 2 a.m, and I had this other great idea, like, let's go down and watch the sun come up. And we went down, and this time I remember seeing a sign that said authorized vehicles only. But I was like, oh well, vehicles, let's go. And I was driving, and we went down that road, and it was the old 7 Mile Bridge that they blew up for that movie. I don't know if you remember the scene where they blow the bridge up, and there's like the van is hanging over, and a big bird comes and lands on it, and the van splashes into the water. Well, that was the road that we went down. And I remember I had just said to Max, I was like, this is so weird. Where is this road leading to? It's like this road to nowhere. And it was just about when I said those words, when those words came out of my mouth, that I went crashing head on into that concrete barrier, where on the other side of the barrier is the water. You know what I'm talking about? And I had hit that thing going at least 50 miles an hour, like I said, head on. And I opened my eyes, and there was like smoke and fire coming out of the hood. And I was like, oh my God, Max, we got to get out of here. This thing's going to blow. And I remember I put my hand down to my ankle, and I felt the bones in my ankle. I remember my knees hit the dash, so I completely smashed my pelvis. And the worst of it is I couldn't move my whole left side. And I had broken my neck at C1, C2, which, by the way, is the same fracture that Christopher Reeve sustained. So when I tell you I'm a miracle, I am not just saying that. So anyway, I'm thinking, what the heck? And we were in the middle of nowhere, no cell phones back in those days. This is 1995. And I'm like, how are we going to get out of here? And I grabbed Max's hand, and I was shaking it, and I was like, Max, wake up. The impact was so strong that I figured he just hit his head and bumped his head and was passed out. But it didn't take long for me to realize that he wasn't breathing and that he was dead. And I can't tell you all the things that went through my mind right then. I was just like, oh my God, please just take me too. There's no way I'm going to be able to live with myself. Look at, this irresponsible drunk driver. Because of me, this precious life was abbreviated. I thought about my family. I thought about his family. I was just like, please, God, just take me too. I mean, I literally was saying all my Catholic schoolgirl prayers, my act of contrition, my Apostles' Creed, all that stuff, trying to get right with God. I knew every breath that I took, I thought was going to be the last one. And then all of a sudden, I saw the blue lights in my rearview mirror. And I was like, oh my God. And the police officer was so kind and loving and just kept saying things like, we're going to cut you out of here. Keep breathing. Hang in there. Don't keep your eyes open. Keep talking to me. Whatever. All of that. And this is another just aside that I want to share. Like over a year later, I saw him at one of the court hearings, and he came up to me and he said, I just want to share this with you. That night, I had a spiritual experience because I was going down that bridge road, the regular bridge road, and it was as if something tapped me on the shoulder and literally told me to back my car up and go down the old bridge road. It was so strong that when I got there and I saw the crash and I saw the fire, I almost wasn't surprised, And he said, and I said, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing that with me because, it made me think like, God left me here for a reason. Now I just got to face the challenge of figuring out what that reason is, So anyway, that's what happened. I got cut out of the car and heliported to Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, where I was to spend the next several months. And as soon as I got let out of the hospital, I had to go into a rehab hospital. And so that's where I moved, was near a friend in St. Pete Beach. And so anyone who knows the St. Pete Beach meetings, I went to the Alano Club in Dolphin Village. And let me tell you something, those people saved my life. I can't even, when I tell you, I walked into that meeting like on a walker with that big old Philadelphia neck brace on. You should have seen how slowly I had to walk. It was tough. And I just remember, and by the way, my family, my mother was so angry. My mom and my dad stayed in the hospital until I was out of the woods and then went home. And I remember going, Mom, can I come home, to New Jersey to recover from this? And she said, absolutely not. You figure it out. Your friends have always done, you made your bed, you sleep in it. Kind of like, you sleep in it, young lady. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh my God. And at every corner of this tragedy, when I thought I was alone, like an angel showed up. And so the woman who I stayed in the hospital with, she was 85 years old, and her daughter, her name was Marlene, she took me in. And I started to, go to physical therapy with her 85-year-old mother. And I'll tell you something, that's the course of my journey. There was always an angel there waiting to help lift me. And so anyway, the people in this AA meeting at Alano Club, they were all angels. They loved me in the place of my mother. They helped me get through the feelings of being, abandoned, if you will, by my family, because it wasn't just my mother. It was like my siblings, everybody. They were just like, you had this coming, so deal with it, And so they embraced me with this beautiful love that we all know, they're not going to judge me. They're going to love me until I love myself, kind of thing. And let me tell you something. Step one was always like, my life was unmanageable. I'm powerless over alcohol. Yeah, but I'll tell you something. You people told me things like, Jane, you got to drop that fierce Irish pride that you have and start to seek humility. Jane, you need to stop pointing the finger of blame at everyone else and accept responsibility for what you've done. But more than anything, I heard rigorous honesty. And I committed to living a life of honesty. Not even white lies anymore. I was going to going to bed at night with a clear conscience as far as my new behaviors were concerned. And that all involved rigorous honesty. And so when it came time for all the court stuff, how could I say, even though my attorney wanted me to, not guilty? You know, no way. I was guilty. And because of me, a precious life wasn't here anymore. So I pled guilty, and I got sentenced to 5 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation. Now, I can talk about prison for the next hour, let me tell you, but I am so grateful that I got that 5 years in prison, because I mean, let's face it, I lived out of a Foot Locker. You know, like, I got rid of all the externals, all the distractions, and my life was so simplified that I was able to really go on a mining expedition and figure out who I was without drugs and alcohol. Like I said, I had a 14-year run, you know, and, you know, I also feel like by simplifying my life, you know, I could really hear the voice of God within me, or hear the whispers of God. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to explain, but anyway, I feel like, you know, oh, and by the way, I always like to share this. A couple of years ago, I got asked to share my story down in the Florida Keys at a gratitude dinner. And the woman who picked me up at the airport worked for the court system. And guess what? She told the judge who sentenced me, and the judge came to the gratitude dinner. So I was able to hug the judge, and I literally thanked her for saving my life, you know. And, you know, I got, as I told you, 5 years of incarceration, 10 years of probation. And I joked with the judge, you know, Leah, thank you for saving my life. I needed that 5 years. Now, the 10 years of probation I could have done without, but yeah. But anyway, it was really a beautiful full circle moment. And yeah, and, you know, again, like I said, I could talk about prison for the next several hours, but I do want to talk about, you know, some of the remarkable things that happened to me in there. So my fourth step, let me tell you, it may, you know, taking that fearless inventory, I really did a great job at that. I mean, I basically wrote out my autobiography because I wanted whoever I was going to do my fifth step with to know me in context, you know? But anyway, and then of course I made the list of resentments and fears and guilt and sexual behaviors. And sure enough, Mass one Sunday, Catholic priest said, ladies, I just want you to know, I got permission from the warden to do fifth steps. So, and he happened to be from New Jersey. I was like, what? So anyway, I signed up and I did my fifth step with him. And let me tell you something. I did the best fifth step with him. I remember him saying to me, Jane, I'm not okay, you're not okay, and that's okay, from that book, The Spirituality of Imperfection, which I love. And he said, you know, I'm a Catholic priest, I've heard it all, so just lay it on me. And I'll tell you something, for me, that was the game changer. Of course, it put my humility to the test, but I'll tell you something, it really helped me to regain that sense of self-worth. I felt like I was no longer like this freak and more of a member of the human race, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I can't even tell you the peace that I felt that overcame me. It was as if I was freer I was never freer in my whole life, and here I was in prison. You know what I mean? So anyway, and I also learned in prison many valuable things, like especially with regard to my two biggest character defects. One of them was resentments, and the other one was being judgmental. You know, I met some of the kindest, most loving women I've ever met in my life in prison. Now, resentments, it's funny. Let me tell you, I feel like I should have written Orange is the New Black. My family was absolutely zero financially, what do you call it? They sent me absolutely no money the whole time I was in prison. And if you've ever been in prison, which I'm sure some of you have been, you know that you need money for canteen, right? But you know, so anyway, I hope maybe I'll get a couple smiles in the audience over this, but I always think, oh man, I should have written Orange is the New Black. The name of my book would be I'm Nobody's Boo, because my ass is broke. Thank you. But But yeah. So anyway, and I did 85% of the 5 years. So the day I got out, all those God shots, all those miracles started happening. I'm telling you, one after the other. The first one was, in the taxi cab on my way to the first meeting. And I went to, this is where my home group right now, but I remember as soon as I got into the cab, I couldn't believe the song that was playing. And I started crying, and the cab driver was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I just got out of prison after almost 5 years. I can't believe this song is playing." And it was, "I'm as free as a bird now." I mean, what are the chances that that was on the radio? Unbelievable. I dropped my hefty bag full of all my earthly belongings off, went to my AA meeting, and at that meeting were women who brought the meeting into prison. And they were like, "Oh my God, when did you get out?" I was like, "Today." They were like, "What?" So again, all those blessings started to happen one after the other. I think people call them God shots, right? And so I started to rebuild my life, and lots of miracles happened. And many of them involved just all these serendipitous moments, but I believe firmly that they all happened because I just kept doing the next right thing. I ended up my first job was at a housekeeper at a hotel, making minimum wage, but I'll tell you something, it was the best job I ever had. I lost my license for life, so I took buses and rode my bikes everywhere. And I tried to get my teaching certification back, but they told me I would never teach again. So I decided to go back to school. And I ended up in randomly work release in Tallahassee, Florida. That's how I ended up in Tallahassee. And what's there? Florida State University. So I said, let me go back. I'll get my master's. What better job to work within the realm of love and service than social work? So I went back and I got my MSW. And let me tell you something. Oh, and here's another thing. This was part of my probation. I had to go to an AA meeting 10 years, every day. Even my probation officer was like, I never heard of that before, and without a license. So I got, my apartment was a walking distance from the AA house. And I went to a meeting every day for 5 years. And then the judge lowered it to 5 times a week. And I went back to school at Florida State, like I said, got my MSW. My first job was working at our local detox. How perfect is that? And then I just, I loved working in social work. I started to slowly but surely rebuild my relationship with my family. It took years, folks. I'm not kidding, years. I made all my financial amends, which was a big deal for me. I owed $15,000 to my parents for the attorney that they got. And that ain't easy to pay off when you're making minimum wage. But I did it in 7 years. And I'll tell you something, the freedom I felt from that was unbelievable. I continued to, again, stay connected with my AA group. You all helped me out with rides whenever I needed them, but especially support whenever I needed it. And sure enough, again, these great things started happening. Let me tell you this other story. Also, as part of my probation, I had to go to therapy once a month. And 1 month out of prison, my therapist said, get permission from your probation officer because I'm packing up 2 carloads of women and we're going to an AA women's retreat in St. Simon's Island, Georgia. And I was like, oh man, women's retreat? AAs? That sounds like fun. Not. So I did, and I went, and I'll never forget the first woman speaker I saw behind the podium was this little pepper pot, older woman with white curly hair. And she went on and on about what a horrible alcoholic mother she was, how she abused her 2 sons and, this and that. And I remember sitting in my seat going, damn, I can't believe that lady's laying it out like she is. I mean, wow. Sure enough, that lady today is my mother-in-law. So many of you might know her. I'm so proud that she's my mother-in-law, but her name is Polly P., and she lives in Jacksonville. And I don't know of any woman speaker who has done more for women in Alcoholics Anonymous than my mother-in-law. But isn't that like telling how like God's divine hand was in everything I did way before I even, or was happening in my life way before I even knew it, you know? And and then other miracles started happening, miracle upon miracle. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, getting a call from the dean at the College of Social Work, asking if I would be interested in a full-time faculty position. I couldn't believe it. I remember thinking, oh my God, less than 10 years ago, I was sitting on a prison bunk. And guess what? Now I'm a professor at Florida State University in the College of Social Work. I just got promoted this year, and I've been there for 17 years now. And I mean, talk about miracles. I mean, who the heck? Oh. And other miracles. So once again, there were a lot of newcomers in this room. And I'm telling you, like, stay, let the miracles happen. Don't give up. Don't give in. Stay connected. Stay at that seat at the table that I was telling you about earlier. And I'm telling you, you won't believe the ride that you're in for. Other miracles that have happened. My mother has since become one of my biggest fans, and she started writing to the governor of New Jersey about that. For what? 4 minutes? Okay. Started. I'm almost done. I promise. If you want me to finish now, I will. But anyway, okay, let me tell you about this one miracle, all right? My mother started writing to the governor of New Jersey, and his last night in office, Governor Chris Christie himself called me and gave me a pardon for that first DUI. And after over 20 years, I just started driving again. They told me I would never drive again. And I know everyone's hot. I know you've listened to me ramble on up here, but let me tell you something. As we move through this holiday season, my hope is that everyone feels that light that I talked about at the beginning. It's meant to be shared. Each person, every day, it's one act of kindness at a time, in addition to one day at a time. I hope that your new year, after the holiday season, is filled with hope. And that's exactly what this program gave me, was hope. And I'll be forever grateful. Thanks, everyone. Have a great holiday season.
Okay, thank you, Jane. We have passed the basket in accordance with the 7th tradition. Also, a second basket went around for the ASL donations. You can pick up meeting sheets at the podium after the meeting. Let's give tonight's speaker a round of applause. If you are willing to become a sponsor, please raise your hand. Ellen will come and read There is a Solution from page 25 out of the big book.